Recording in progress.
Welcome back to Matah Yahweh, the spirits, the waters, and the blood. Today, this is going to be a short lesson. Fair use on all information that I share, videos, or anyone particular posted information. Fair use. I use it for educational purposes or to give commentary to, or just to actually point out flaw sometimes. But today, I'm back to just do a little touch up on Ibn Yahya El Negro, the royal bloodline of King David, and basically the trail of what it actually entailed or where it ended. A lot of individuals may try to say or have said that Yahya Negro El Negro did not exist when he actually did exist. Have records of him and his writings, his family, his bloodline, and how they were ethnic. They were brown individuals, or would be considered ignorantly as black people. Most definitely going through the different steps of it in order to show that, or just not to prove it, because I mean it's already proven that if a person is labeled El Negro or Negro, then he has to be some type of ethnic descent that will be distinguished as being black. All right, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and give thanks to my heavenly Father first, Barakatah Yahweh, um, Tawara Bahashem Hamashiach Yahusha Uvain Barakata Ruach Kodasheha Etlo Yakalat Latir Yahuwah Hitav. So, giving thanks, take the time out to hit the like, share, subscribe. It helps with the frequencies of the Father's word being put out and the chosen bloodline of King David or Yahweh Judah throughout history. So, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. If it does it, there we go. Okay. Um, this right here is just showing information on this particular site that I'm sharing with you today. I'll leave this particular site or the email address, or not email address, the actual site information and down in my comment sections. It's easier that way. So let me go ahead and get this up, make me a little bit bigger. All right, so I'm gonna try to blow this up a little bit so to help with me with reading and you with reading as well. And thanks again for everybody that tunes into my channel or Yahweh Das channel in order to help promote the Father's word. And it's not doing it. All right, but this particular site gives up the ancestry, King David dynasty, the Charlotte family ascension, the ancestry lineage from King David down to the Exilards, Ibn Yahya family, and the Charlotte family. All right, then you have the royal house of David. That's here. I'm gonna try to blow this up a little bit one more time. And it is not working. But I'll go ahead and proceed. All right, so we have King David, Solomon, Rehoboam, Abijah, Asa, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, Ahaziah, Ahaziah, Azhiah, and then the different lineages all the way down to the Exalots. So then when we get to the Exalots, it's naming the Exalots here. And like I said before, I'll leave the link to this particular website in my comment section. Please take the time out again. Like I said before, hit the like, share, subscribe. They don't cost anything. Most definitely the bell notification, because sometimes my video are shadow banned. I'll release a video and nobody will get notification that I've released a video. Not even me. Imagine that. But anyway, we go down through the Exalots, Yehuda, Hezekiah, the sons of Hezekiah. All of this is listed throughout and their particular contributions to society. So these are not fictional characters, they're actually historical characters. So then I'm gonna go to here. I don't want to make this video too long either. Yaish Ibn Yahya. Should I read? No, let's go down a little further. I'm looking for particular information. Like I said before, I don't want to go through this whole particular site and read everything, but I'll read everything that's going to actually prove my points to there. Like they say, where's Waldo? Where's Yehuda? Where's Judah? And where did he go? All right, so basically, with that being said, I'm gonna just go ahead and start. Right. Okay, I can start right here. And then they're talking about the firstborn. I mean, the first objective was to subdue. No, not here. I want to go here. To reward his loyal family, or to reward his loyal chief of staff for capturing for the capture of Santorium and Lesbion. Alfonso I honored Ibn Yahya with the lordship of Unos, Frieles, and Aladia dos Negros. These previously Moorish towns would henceforth be the domain of the sons of Ibn Yahya. This is how his descendants appeared or appended the name Negro. This is how his descendants appended the name Negro to their distinguished Ibn Yahya affiliations. Thus, established in Portuguese territory, they formed the trunk of an illustrious Jewish family that rendered outstanding service to their community until their expulsion at the end of the 15th century. Muhammad ibn Yahya, now known as Don Yahya ibn Yahya, was installed as chief rabbi of Portugal and continued to have the full trust of the king. In the year 1151 CE, Don Yahya accompanied Alfonso on an unsuccessful military excursion to capture Alcia or Alsicar do Sal, southeast of Lesbian. Yahya fell mortally wounded in a fight between the Moors defenders and an alliance of English Crusaders and Royal Portuguese forces. He who had lived heroically died heroically. Of his descendants, Joseph the Wise, son of David, Ibn Yahya wrote, the royal and holy Ibn Yahya family dominated the formerly Negros areas of Portugal for many generations. Their homes were filled with wealth. Their fields produced many kinds of grain and fine wines. Still, they had little regard for worldly goods. Their mission was to serve Elahiyah. Correlating the foreign information with the existence, correlating the all right, correlating the form, the foregoing, correlating the foregoing information with existence. Shut up. Ibn Yahya family tree yields the following: the dates of Muhammad ibn Yahya, his descendants from King David, his military reputation, his position in the Portuguese royal court, and the fact that his sons were known as Negro indicate that Muhammad ibn Yahya is none other than Yaish ibn Yahya, son of the revived the revered Cheyenne al Dawida, the first Sherlock. Prior to learning the new details of his life, information about Yaish was sketchy. We knew only that he was born shortly after the turn of the 12th century. His death was listed as either 1151 or 1196, and he was said to be a great scholar, military commander, and politician. His father was accorded the title Charlotte, Cheyenne, or Shaya, first in the exile in Portugal. Shaya, first in the exile in Portugal. A Muslim Ibn Yahya wrote it. Okay, that's the actual book that is where where's my mouse? All right. The actual book that it was written out of. If you want to find more information on that, I'll give you time enough to look at it, and then that way you can see or perceive if you want to actually look it up or find out for yourself. All right, contemporary with Yaish Ibn Yahya were Aharon, the Ibn Yahya, and David Ibn Yahya, descendants of Aragon branch of the family. Aharon was the builder of the magnificent Ibn Yahya synagogues in Kaltayud. David David Ibn Yahya of Monzon was appointed bailiff by Alfonso II of Aragon. He was also a prominent landholder in Lerida, Lerida and in Ventanier. So then you go on, and these are, like I said, the actual individuals that are descendants of King David, which was El Negro. So you have Yahya ibn Yaish, Yahya El Negro, 1150 to 1222, resident of Portugal, scholar, politician, royal advisor, vast land holdings. And then his sons that are listed here as well. So Ibn Yaish, that this bloodline links back to King David, the Negroes. Ham, the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes, in the Zonder and Compact Bible. All right, so therefore, I'm gonna go ahead. Like I said, I don't want to make this long. I'm gonna go ahead and skip this here. Like I said before, I'll leave the link I'll leave the link down to that particular site in my comment section. All right, so here we have, I'll move me over here. Right there. Okay. So now we have modern Jewish history, the Spanish expulsion in 1492. Remember, they were saying that the Yahya family resided in Portugal and Spain, and then once Spain decided to kick their particular Jewish community out, then Portugal followed suit, being under the same rule. All right, so have the modern Jewish, okay, the table of contents. Like I said before, this is the modern Jewish history of basically the Judeans in the Jewish Virtual Library. So, in the same month in which their Majesty Ferdinand and Isabella issued the edict that all Jews should be driven out of the kingdom, out of the kingdom and its territories, in the same month they gave me the order to undertake with sufficient men my expedition and discovery of the Indies. So begins Christopher Columbus's diary. The expulsion that Columbus refers to was a cataclysmic and event that ever since the date of 1492 has been almost as important in the Jewish history as in American history. On July 30th of that year, the entire Jewish community, some 200,000 people, were expelled from Spain. Tens of thousands of refugees died while trying to reach safety. In, in, in some instances, Spanish ships' captains charged Jewish passengers exorbitant sums, then dumped them overboard in the middle of the ocean. In the last days before the expulsion, rumors spread throughout Spain that the fleeing refugees had swallowed gold and diamonds, and many Jews were knifed to death by brigands hoping to find treasures in their stomachs. The Jewish expulsion had been the pet project of the Spanish Inquisition, headed by Father Thomas de Torquemada. Torquemada believed that as long as the Jews remained in Spain, they would have influence in the tens of thousands of recent Jewish converts to Christianity to continue practicing Judaism in secret. All right, continue to practice Judaism in secret. Ferdinand and Isabella rejected Torquemada's demand that the Jews be expelled until January 1492, when the Spanish army defeated Muslim forces in Granada, thereby restoring the whole of Spain to Christian rule. With their most important project, the country's unification accomplished, the king and queen concluded that the Jews were expendable. On March 30th, they issued the expulsion decree and the order to take effect in precisely 4 months. The short time span was a great boon to the rest of Spain, as the Jews were forced to liquidate their homes and businesses and absurdly low prices throughout those frantic months. Dominican priests actively encouraged Jews to convert to Christianity and thereby gain salvation both in this world and in the next. The most fortunate of the expelled Jews succeeded in escaping to Turkey. Sultan Bajazet welcomed them warmly. How can you call Ferdinand of Aragon a wise king? He is found of asking. The same Ferdinand who impoverished his own land and enriched ours. Among the most unfortunate refugees were those who fled to neighboring Portugal. In 1496, King Manuel of Portugal concluded an argument to marry Isabel, the daughter of Spain's monarch. As a condition of the marriage, the Spanish royal family insisted that Portugal expel her Jews. Now, Manuel agreed, although he was reluctant to lose his affluent and accomplished Jewish community. In the end, only 8 Portuguese families were actually expelled. Tens of thousands of others were forcibly converted to Christianity on pain of death. Christianity on pain of death. The chief rabbi, Simeon Miami, was one of those who refused to convert. He was kept buried in the earth up to his neck for 7 days until he died. In the final analysis, all of these events took place because of the relentless will of one man, Thomas de Col- Thomas de Coromada, I guess. Anyway, Salathia for butchering your name. But anyway, the Spanish Jews who ended up in Turkey, North Africa, Italy, and elsewhere throughout Europe and the Arabian world who were known as Sephardim. Sepharad began Sepharad being the Hebrew name for Spain. After the expulsion, the Sephardim imposed an informal ban forbidding Jews from ever again living in Spain, specifically because their earlier sojourner in the country had been so happy. The Jews regarded the expulsion as a terrible betrayal and have remembered it ever since with particular bitterness. Of dozens of expulsions directed against Jews throughout their history, the one from Spain remains the most infamous. All right. I'll go here. The Spanish Parliament, I guess, but the Spanish Parliament approved a measure on June 11, 2015, aimed at restoring citizenship to descendants of Sephardic Jewish individuals who were expelled. The law allowed relatives of individuals who were expelled to apply for dual citizenship. Spanish Justice Ministry announced in October 2019 that the 4-year period to apply for citizenship ended. The ministry said 132,226 people had applied for dual citizenship. So I guess if I'm releasing the truth, then my computer starts bugging out. But I'm gonna go on a little right here. I'm gonna go on and just leave it at this right here. Like I said before, thanks again for tuning in. This is not a long video, just to prove that Yahya El Negro, the bloodline of King David, is black, and then therefore they were the individuals that kicked off what was known as the transatlantic slave trade. They were stationed in northwestern Africa, or they were placed in northwestern Africa. Some people flee there. Some people, some people flee to West Africa from Assyrian captivities. That's some of the 10 tribes. But Ibn Yahya, or the House of King David, came from Portugal and Spain. And they basically were stationed in Spanish territories or Portuguese territories until it kicked off what was known as the transatlantic slave trade. And that's basically how we ended up, the house of Yahweh ended up in slavery. I would have played music for this video, but hey, I got a couple of responses that were saying that I guess it was too distractive. Me myself, I can study while a fight is going on in a room. I could still study no matter what. So basically, I gotta remember that not everybody has that same thought capacity. So therefore, I figured I'd just slow it down a little bit, or just to not have it so loud. But my main objective again is to escape, or to produce videos to where you don't feel like you're in a classroom. Technically, stay blessed, stay prayed up, and stay tuned for this last particular video or this last particular insert. which actually showed what happened to the bloodline of King David.
From about 1525 to 1866, 12.5 million Africans were taken from their homeland and forcibly shipped across the Atlantic, a journey that almost 2 million of them wouldn't survive. By the turn of the 18th century, European merchants were building vessels capable of transporting hundreds of slaves per year. From about 1525 to 1866, 12.5 million Africans were taken from their homeland and forcibly shipped across the Atlantic, a journey that almost 2 million of them wouldn't survive. By the turn of the 18th century, European merchants were building vessels capable of transporting hundreds of slaves per journey. These ships had extra portholes for ventilation, weapons mounted on deck in case of rebellion, and additional compartments added below deck to take on more human cargo. Before boarding the ships at African port cities, slaves were stripped of their clothing and remaining possessions and had their heads completely shaved. During boarding, which could take weeks or even months, slaves remaining possessions and had their heads completely shaved. During boarding, which possessions and had their heads completely shaved. During boarding, which could take weeks or even months, slaves lived on the deck of the ship in a temporary wooden house constructed by the crew. The crew also installed netting around the deck of the ship, designed to catch slaves who might opt for death over forced servitude. Once moved below deck, slaves would find themselves stuffed into compartments with ceilings as low as 4.5 feet, where they would spend most of their voyage. They were segregated by gender and age. Adult men were kept separately and shackled in pairs. Women usually left unbound in their designated compartment, and children often free to move about the ship. There was no plumbing of any kind. Slaves were forced to relieve themselves where they sat, creating hellish conditions when combined with the heat and lack of ventilation below deck. Disease was rampant. Measles, smallpox, influenza, scurvy, and dysentery, the #1 killer, ravaged slaves and crew members. Disease was rampant. Measles, smallpox, influenza, scurvy, and dysentery, the #1 killer, ravaged slaves and crew members alike. The slaves generally spent about 8 hours a day above deck, but were still separated by gender with a barricado, a reinforced wall that could be used to protect crew members in case of a revolt. Slaves were also subject to including dance and song for the entertainment of the crew, a reinforced wall that could be used to protect crew members in case of a revolt. Slaves were also subject to forced exercise, sometimes including dance and song for the entertainment of the crew. Disobedient slaves were tortured and beaten, usually whipped with the especially cruel cat-o'-nine-tails, a tool designed to inflict maximum pain. Slaves who refused to eat their typical meal of rice and beans were forced to do so, sometimes with the speculum oris, a medieval tool used to pry open unwilling mouths. Women, while usually left unshackled, were raped and sexually abused by members of the crew, sometimes arriving in the New World carrying the children of their attackers. But it was the women. Women, while usually left unshackled, were raped and sexually abused by members of the crew, sometimes arriving in the New World carrying the children of their attackers. Sometimes arriving in the New World carrying the children of their attacker. Sometimes arriving in the New World carrying the children of their attackers. But it was the women, using their minuscule freedoms, who would often coordinate mutinies against their captors. But these rebellions were rarely successful. The true extent of the horrors of the Middle Passage came to light in the 1783 court trial. The Zong left Africa in 1781 with 442 enslaved on board. After a 2-month journey riddled with navigation errors, 62 slaves and 7 crew members had perished without reaching their destination. Disease was spreading throughout the ship, and fresh water was running dangerously low. Captain Luke Collingwood was afraid of the financial costs of more deaths. Slaves that died of disease were not covered by the ship's insurance, but slaves who drowned were. Some 133 slaves were thrown overboard. Collingwood claimed it was necessary to do so to halt the spread of 33 slaves were thrown overboard. Collingwood claimed it was necessary to do so to halt the spread of disease. Found were. Some 133 slaves were thrown overboard. Collingwood claimed it was necessary to do so to halt the spread of disease. At the trial between the Zong's owners and their insurance company, the owners argued that because it was legal to kill sick animals for the health of a ship, it was legal to treat infected slaves the same. The court agreed, but the trial itself exposed the horrors aboard the Zong. The story was republished by British abolitionists with the name of the ship redacted, meant to show that this tragedy could happen on any slave ship across the Middle Passage. 24 years after the Zong trial, both Great Britain and the United States, it would take it. After the Zong trial, the slave trade was outlawed in both Great Britain and the United States across the Middle Passage. 24 years after the Zong trial, the slave trade was outlawed in both Great Britain and the United States. It would take England another 26 years, and the US another 58, plus a civil war, before the practice of slavery was banned outright.
After Charles II of Spain signed an edict allowing slave ships to travel directly from Africa to the Americas, human cargo on transatlantic voyages spiked nearly tenfold.